I'm going to talk about something controversial and everybody's going to laugh because you're like, yeah, you always say it's controversial. It is. Seems like that's what I talk about. And I want to start also by saying there is no judgment in what I'm about to say because it's exactly what I did. And what I want to talk about is staying home with your children. When I was young and I had my first child in 1984, I was told, just like the rest of the world, you get out, you get a job, women can do anything guys can do. And of course, with a young couple, we thought our finances were such that we had to get a job. But as I look back, when I went to work and then when I had my second child, they would cry when I would take them to daycare. They would cry when I take them to the babysitter. They didn't mind the babysitters, but they cried and it would rip my heart out. And I would go to work. And of course, I could tune it out and not think about them until, of course, when you get a phone call or you lunch or at the end of the day, you're just dying to get home and see them. And I'm not saying I didn't think about them at all. I'm just saying you could stay focused on your job. We live in a world that tells us women can do anything, go and get fulfilled. And I will even tell you that when given the choice of, oh, it'd be a daycare provider or work, I was like, the thought of being a daycare provider, first of all, not me. I can watch my own kids, but I did not want to organize a whole bunch of other rugrats. And that would be a great opportunity for someone else. But I think about the kinds of sacrifice. So many of us women say, I need my brain stimulated. I need to do this. And I said all the same things. I was grateful that when we moved to Italy, when my daughters were 9 and 12, that they couldn't give jobs to military spouses at that point. So I was forced to stay home. And fortunately for me, I started taking some classes, but I was with my children and I never regretted it. When I came back from Italy, I never regretted it. I stayed and I didn't want to work. So the point of this is when we go to work by choice, there are some of you that have to go. You have no choice financially, but many of us have choices, or we could cut a lot of corners. A lot of us go to work just because we think, I need it. I need the mental stimulation. I need to feel valued. The code word in that is I. So many of us women are thinking about what I want to do. We swallowed the narrative, hook, line, and sinker, as they say. We have been fed that line from cultural elites, really, which has been taken over a lot by the communistic movement, which is trying to separate parents from children, get children out of the homes and into the schools. It's a whole conversation for another time. But if we consider ourselves selfless, what I'm trying to do with my videos is change our thinking all the time. I just wish I had thought like this back then. But we're not thinking about our children as much as we're thinking about ourselves. For those of you that, like me, are going to work by choice because it makes me feel validated, I'll lose my mind. Well, what about our kids? What about our kids that cry when we leave? What about our kids that aren't getting to have stories read to them in the middle of the day? Even if you're not Susie Homemaker baking cookies and reading them stories in the middle of the day, the idea that mommy is there, or dad in some cases, that security they get, even if they stay in their bedrooms coloring pictures, even if they're playing in the backyard like I did as a kid. I always played with my siblings. I wasn't sitting on my mom's lap 24/7, but I knew that my mom was there. When I cut my wrist on a glass window and had to run in and show my mom, when I found a snail or a caterpillar in the backyard, anything to know that my mom was there gave me such security that you don't understand unless, of course, you were latchkey kids and you're really being honest with yourself. Many of you are so quick to default. Oh, I was fine. But let's be honest, because look, it's just a video between me and you. No one knows what's going in your head. This is just about getting you to think. You don't even have to admit this to anybody. Well, wouldn't you have preferred to have your mom there or your dad? Wouldn't you have preferred for them to pick you up? Wouldn't you have preferred to know someone was there when you cried or had a bad day or you broke up with your boyfriend or your girlfriend? And Again, I think we get the false picture of what it looks like to be a stay-home mom or a stay-home dad. The fact that that even became a term makes me angry these days. A stay-home, that's what we're made to be, is a mom, a dad. Stay home. Moms, dads are the ones whose brains are wired to provide and protect. There are a few men who would rather stay home with the kids while the moms would prefer to work, but most men want to work and provide, want to protect. Most moms prefer to nurture. And again, some women push back me. I'm not the nurturing type. Well, neither am I never dreamt of, I would have kids and stay home. I didn't. I lived for the moment. I wanted to nurture my kids. I wanted to see what they did when they went to school and they did stuff. I wanted to see what my kids did. I wanted to brag about my kids. The idea of being able to go to your kid's school in the middle of the day. I remember one time my younger daughter was in preschool or first grade. I cannot remember. I worked at a credit union and you had to take time off. It wasn't liberal like it is now where you could be flexible. And possibly if I hadn't known how big something was, I would have gone. But there was this one particular event which wasn't really communicated to me, was a parents need to come to this event. And they were singing songs and they were doing something. And so I was like, oh, thinking, okay, they're going to sing some songs in class and it's an optional thing. When I picked up my daughter that day, I found out that every child had a parent there but me. And I'm not that kind of a mom. I'm the mom that went to everything. I was the Girl Scout leader. I was the cheerleading coach. As my daughters were like, you are always there. Every teacher always knew me. Every principal, I was involved. But that I missed that one thing. I wouldn't have missed if I was a stay-home mom. And is my daughter traumatized by it now? Who knows? Probably not. But that day she was. That day it hurt her. That day she looked out and everybody had a mom and she didn't have anyone to sit there and go, that's my special child. It's my girl. I'm so proud of you. There's so many benefits to staying home. Yeah, you won't be able to buy season tickets to Busch Gardens for the most part. Yeah, you'll have to cut back. And many of us will maybe even need to only have one car instead of two. We need to turn the tide. We need to start looking through a lens of, am I really thinking about the other or am I thinking about the self? I just want you to parse this. Again, no judgment. I worked. I'm glad I didn't work in the second half of my children's life. So I know what it's like on both sides. And for those of you that are working while they're little and society will try and tell you, oh, well, now that they're in school, they don't need you. You can go to work. I think it's even more important to be home when your children are teenagers, when they're being bombarded with sexual messages, when breakups and so many horrible things can happen, but just to guide their thinking as they're entering into adulthood. Sometimes I think it's even more important to be there then. Not sure. Let me know your thoughts. As I said, pretty controversial. But we need to grab back our families. We need to stop listening to culture and say, just forget you, culture. I don't need what you say. And to get better at not worrying about being judged when other people judge you because you don't have the fanciest clothing or handbags or things because you can't really afford them. But my family took us on a vacation every year just to the northern part of Wisconsin. We stayed in a little cabin, and that's because someone my dad worked with let us stay there at a discounter. We wouldn't have been able to, but we just played in the lake together. The memories, the security, that's what your children will remember. And it's never too late. So I'm Dr. Christine Bacon. I'd like to thank you again for watching this informational Bacon Bit. Go ahead and like and subscribe to all my channels. It really does help. But no matter what, I'd like to remind you always to live your life. You know what I'm going to say. Sunny side up.